Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. And we're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on what I feel is a great viewer question. Very important. And this is a video for those people who are trying to recover or heal from a narcissist or a psychopathic relationship, either romantically, in their workplace, in their family, in their community, in their school, wherever it is you've encountered this individual. This is a video on how to spot a psychopath, and now we're going to get into a narcissist. Because once you've been through this merry-go-round, there's going to come a brink point where you want to get off. You want to stop these issues. You want to stop feeling victimized. You want to stop feeling like you're out there and you can be vulnerable or subject to future episodes of being taken advantage of, having to, be on the short end of the stick, having more problematic relationships, having more messes to clean up. So there comes a point when you really want to know how to identify someone who is psychopathic or narcissistic, so you know how to protect yourself. You understand energetically what boundaries are. You understand and implement energetically what standards are. You have a feel for this neurophysiologically within your body, so you can do this automatically, where you're able to have a radar or detect someone who is psychopathic. So the other day we got into a little bit more of the physiological aspect. Now I want to really focus in on this video on some of more of the characteristics that you can notice and identify within someone who is psychopathic. Namely, let's get into it this way. If you notice that someone is very sort of grand, charming, comes out wanting to take the helm, take center stage, be sort of presumptuous or very sort of big with their behaviors. Big meaning really out there, sort of outlandish. And outlandish meaning not only having a disposition of being pompous or arrogant or just sort of assumptive in the fact that everyone is going to be attracted to them. In other words, the center of attention. People who are psychopathic, oftentimes they can come out as very, charismatic or overtly charming. Just very, I don't want to say pompous, but, with a bigger than life ego. Yet, that is on the outside. And there's another word that I'm looking for, that beyond arrogance, it's just sort of a pretentiousness. So they can also be very pretentious, meaning, assuming and assumptive of that you're going to comply with their opinion that they are the funniest, the smartest, the most intelligent. And there's this affability. So when you see these individuals who are kind of beckoning for your attention, in other words, you feel immediately drawn to look at or listen to this person. So a lot of people mistake this as physical attraction. So, you might think, wow, this person is a real sex pot. This person has a sexual allure. They're very seductive. They're very sort of, there's just this sort of aura about them that you are captivated by, captured by. These are ways for you to detect that there is a psychopathic individual or presence. They have this sort of dominating or domineering, bigger than life persona, personality, characteristic, behavior, sort of assumptive that they will have this without merit, without sort of proving that they are not only the life of the party or the life of the office or your best lover. They will get to that, but they don't really earn it. In other words, they put people at ease very quickly. It's because the psychopath has been able to, because they're not very attached to people, they're very adept at observing people and become very keen, sharp, and aware of people's body language. They become very, sort of observe, and these people will also be very observing of others. In other words, they seem very stoic. They also seem like they don't have a lot of energy running through them. In other words, they're also ultra calm. This is another good way for you to understand that someone is psychopathic. They are ultra calm, ultra unaffected, just on situations that normally someone would be afraid of, someone would be saddened by, someone would have a heart, an empathetic response. They'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. So they would be, sentimentally affected. And then you find that this person is just not reacting in this way. And you're like, how come, you're not afraid of this? How come you're not affected by this? How come this doesn't bother you? And they're just like unnaturally calm. And especially even then, and then oftentimes then also people then become attracted to this because then they tend to say, well, wow, this person has this ability to deal with things, like they're so unaffected. So this can also, for people who are vulnerable, i.e. needing a strong partner, be it a man or a woman, who are needing somebody who's this way. In other words, there's a vulnerability, a need, or an emptiness, or a lack of a role model, or someone to sort of take attention off of them. They can become very low-hanging fruit or scapegoating, or not scapegoating, but, energetically, they're going to be attracted to this. So for people who have been, you can look back and sort of see how this person sort of was very gallivanting, very chivalrous, either as a man or woman, and then, took you by just smittenness, like just right away your guard dropped and you became just very, affable they can become very likable and seem like your best friend, and you have not known them for very long. All of a sudden you're like, wow, I can say this and this person doesn't care. I can do this and this person reacts this way. This person seems to be so different than everybody. This is the answer to my prayers. This is the answer to my wishes. This is my fantasy girl. This is my fantasy guy. I cannot believe this. And then you begin to have in the love bombing, but it's really in my feeling, it's the psychopathic bondage which is taking place. They've basically got you hook, line, and sinker. And oftentimes it doesn't take very long. The psychopath has been able to study individuals, and they see what they fall for. They see who is gullible, see who is green, seeing somebody who is lonely. All these sort of unconscious needs which you're putting out there, and your need, and they're like, just zoom right in, and then they will fill this need for you right away. And then all of a sudden, you're ecstatic, super excited, OMG moments, and you just seem to drop your guard. So all of a sudden you have this desire to quote unquote keep the relationship going. And, then there's this sort of, a beginning. You can also identify when this person, their language patterns are also sort of very different than most people. They might say things that just seem, just a little bit disordered, like just words aren't in the right order. And this also times can be also very charming and very alluring because you're like, wow, here's this person who is this, offbeat communicator. So then people can also get intertwined and enmeshed with this person, or see them as super intelligent or super attractive or super charming because they have these quips, they have these strange statements. And then, but you'll notice then, not only with that, but that's how they attract people and get, all these people on their side, is because they'll say these things that like people normally wouldn't say, either very braggadocious or very highfalutin, or, very seductive, sexual quips, being sexually exploitative then with their talk. So when you see somebody who's doing this, this is another good way to identify a psychopath, is that their word their choice of words just doesn't seem to fit. Yet it oftentimes gets people to pay attention because they say things that are sort of outlandish or strange or very provocative. And so it'll stop people in their tracks and they'll be like, wow, that was like really a creative thing for them to say. And also, usually it has like either grandiose overtones or sexual overtones where then the meaning of things sort of become different. In other words, you feel like you must always pay attention to this person. So if you find a person who is making you feel this way, you should, get a red flag. Oftentimes people see this as like, whoa, this is the party flag. This is the, love of my life, or this is the in person or the it guy or the it girl. Like, I better buddy up to this person. Think twice. Don't get on that, train so quickly. And also with their language, not only their reactiveness, they seem to be very unaffected. So you'll see this sort of emotion that is very monotone. No real ups and downs in their language. No real sort of, energized speech. They might put on in energized speech. They might be, like we were saying earlier in the video, this person who is like, as I say, like come out like Kramer. If you've ever watched Seinfeld, remember the guy with the funny hair, and he'd always like, jet out of the door. If you're not from the U.S., you might not know this character, but his name is Kramer, and he's a very likable. But he always has like this grand entrance, and it's always very sort of funny. So this sort of bigger than life, like and like they're very their body language is very calculated. Their body language is very seductive. Their body language oftentimes is ultra relaxed. So there's this energy that exudes from them. It is their thoughts. You can feel it. That's how, once you understand this, you can learn how to detect it. You go like, yup, that is one of them. You have unequivocal, you can sense it. So for this viewer's question is like, how can I identify a psychopath or a narcissist? We're going to be getting into both. But then, you'll notice that this person's language is very unemotional, very monotone. Or if they're putting on their persona, they might have a projectory language. In other words, they will put on like an actor. They might act like a director. They might act like a doctor. They might act like this. They might act like that. They might act like the charming guy. They might act like the seductive girl. They might act like the businessman, the businesswoman, whatever it is, the politician. I mean, it is all, these people are charades. In fact, there was a very interesting article that was like where, the states with the highest propensity of psychopaths. And that's for those people in the United States. But it's very interesting. They've done studies and shown like certain areas where these people tend to be in high concentration. And so it is to understand that these people, because of their lack of consciousness, because of they have differences in their prefrontal cortex, which is the area where you have judgment, morality, the ability to sort of have a vision, to be sort of have a commitment, forward-looking commitment, and the ability to learn is reduced in a psychopath. Their amygdala, their fear center is also underactive or small. And so, they don't experience fear, they don't experience emotions, and they also tend to, because of this, they can seem responsible, but then extremely irresponsible. It's just like, they will have no ownership. And this gives them the ability to lie. This gives them the ability to fool. It gives them, so they will use their words to say things in a way to trigger, get people's attention. They become very studied in the way of how to manipulate and fool people. Because of their differences in neurochemistry and their inability to sort of, either feel fear or also to have like learning in a specific way that most people do, and like memory, and then like be responsible and have like a commitment and want something moving forward. They don't have that. So they might kind of talk about having a plan with you, but it doesn't hold any meaning. So they might just be, they will just say things that people want to hear. And they will say things to trigger people. They will say things to alarm people. They will say things to take down somebody. They will say things to take down an organization. They will say things to take down people. They will say things to, because it's to them, it's a reward. If I can take somebody down, if I can take a department down, if I can take a family down, a community, to them, it's just like a win. So the psychopath is always for the win. So if you see somebody who's always trying to win, and they have this sort of very unaffected monotone voice where they don't really and they say things that are really kind of out of place, and but that get people to laugh or admire them. And then they are always either talking, for the immature psychopath, always talking about the I, in that, they really have a lack of emotional intelligence. In other words, they'll say things, well, then everyone will come to the meeting to hear me. Everyone will come to my birthday to see me. Everybody, it's all very I-centric, especially for the immature psychopath. And it's always about them. And you can also sense it if you find that you're always thinking about somebody, which is it can be misinterpreted. Those people who are just getting into a relationship, they're like, oh my God, this is wonderful. I'm always thinking about this person. Like, we had such a good time. I'm always thinking about this person. This person gave me this gift. I'm always like, you're having like these like, you're having this dopamine, you're having this oxytocin, you're like wanting to more, you're having this feel-good chemical running through you. And they know exactly what they're doing. They're playing you like a twist-up doll, and when you're always thinking about them, they know that they've got you, and basically they're just priming you for the hijack, the psychological takeover, the gaslighting, the brainwashing, fooling you. These people have the ability to have double, triple lives. I mean, where they put on a mask and then take it off, and they become looking, even metamorphosizing, looking and sounding like a whole different person that you wouldn't recognize. And they have the ability to do this, like when exposed, and they have, two different personas, they will just, go with whatever one that is the biggest supply source. Maybe it's providing them a place to live. Maybe it's, whatever. The person who, they need right now for their parasitic lifestyle, or their parasitic lifestyle in their job, they will then, and then they'll go back, and then just act like nothing ever happened. So these people who, you had, an argument with, and then, and then most people would be remembering it. They just seem to be, so someone who just seems to not really care. It's just like in their mind or not retained. And it becomes, you're like, how come, you're not affected? They seem very unaffected by certain relationship spats where normally there'd be a severing. And it's because they don't have an attachment to the first place. They don't have the ability. They just don't have the ability, but they put on the appearance of having an ability. It's really quite shocking and stunning, but this is because they have a whole different hard wiring and makeup. And so, these are some of the ways for you to indicate are indicative of a psychopath. We can go a little bit longer. Let's see here. So somebody also who is, taking some what I would consider very high risk behaviors, and having fun doing it, or getting something, i.e., violating of people's boundaries, hypersexualizing, touching when it's not appropriate or where appropriate, not being there for certain, important things like holidays, like they seem to miss things like Valentine's Day, and then they're basically like throwing you the flowers, throwing you the chocolate, throwing you the lingerie, whatever it is, they don't have a connection. And then you kind of see that there's something a little bit off, but you tend to, write it off because they're so funny, they're so charming, they're the way that they talk, they're so unaffected. So you begin to kind of make excuses for them. And and then there's this violation. The people who will be what I would consider violation energy. So when you see that someone is either in excess, high risk behaviors, high promiscuity, or hypersexualizing, violating of your personal space, doing strange things in, taking strange objects from you or leaving strange objects around, that kind of make you feel like there's this shiftiness going around, or you feel like this person is communicating with you in an odd, enigmatic way. So it's sort of puzzling, and you become sort of addicted or gripped by their ways. The violation of boundaries. In other words, of your time. What are some areas so you can identify boundaries? Boundaries of your time, your focus, your values, your personal space, your personal standards, your self-respect. These become subject to in an object of violating or enmeshing, blurring out, making null and void. Getting you to go against your better instincts, getting you to go against your better, boundaries, your physical boundaries, your mental boundaries, getting you to feel things, beyond than what is healthy or normal, not sleeping or overindulging in promiscuity or dirty talk, but not ever being satisfied. So keeping one hyper aroused and never sort of fulfilling, if you know what I'm saying. And this can be male or female, and to both sexes. And also violating of boundaries, which means not having any sort of what I would call proprietary sense, or having, propriety, which is like another word for etiquette. So, for example, there might be sort of some unspoken rules, like, you don't go into that office, you don't go into that cabinet, you don't go and talk to that person because it's like that's the boss, or that's the owner, or that's the executive, or that's the training class, or nobody goes in that room, or nobody goes there. Like, it's just you see that they're like either not where they should be or going where they shouldn't be, and just as if they don't really care. And you're like, it seems like their behavior, like they're doing some things that most people wouldn't do. They're having conversations. They've got people's phone numbers. They're talking to you, and then they're always texting. Or there's these other sort of very violationary behaviors, which tend to go against proprietary or social norms. Yet they can be congratulated for these, or applauded for these, or get promotions because of this. So there's a lot of this then social support, or they might rise up in the ranks or what have you because of this. So it goes undetected. This is what's so very, very scary in my mind, is because a lot of people don't know to be on the lookout for this. You can have all the testing in the world, but like people who are out in bars, or people who are whatever at their workplace or their school or their family, like they don't know that, it goes undetected. They have a shield. They have a film where they seem like they're just an achiever or something of that nature. So a lot of people just write, oh, that's just so-and-so. That's just how these people, and they can also, you can find them oftentimes then in very high ranks of organizations, of businesses, in politics. These people you can, in positions of power, these, people just, they can just catapult to these. And yet underneath there's a very cold and callous, uncaring, exploitative situation. I can't even call it a person, because before we wrap up, these are just some ways for you to be able to identify a psychopath. And we're going to go into, I think in the next video, as a way for people who have had, malignant narcissists. These are two very distinct, I would say, situations or experiences, because a psychopath has no conscience. They don't have a conscience. You need to understand, and then understand what conscience is, morality, yet they don't have this, yet they're very good at fooling others to the extent that you would think they seem like they have. So these people are total and complete and utter actors, and almost to the point where they will shapeshift, and they can sort of metamorphosize into these different personality types, where they can be this and then be something completely opposite. They can seem like the greatest dad, but they're the worst criminal. It's very they do this more so than really what most people would, or are capable of doing. So they have this capability to lie, deceive, because most people physiologically, they wouldn't be able to handle it. They wouldn't be able to sleep. They wouldn't be able to show their face. They wouldn't be able to live with themselves. You just would not be able to live with yourselves. These people they're able to live with themselves even though they do all these preposterous things. And, whether they hurt the environment, whether they hurt a community, whether they take down a country, whether they take down a state, whether they take down whatever. I mean, the bigger, the better for these people. It gives them that dopamine, which is like their reward. They're hypersensitive to this. So, and because of their lack of empathy, and their they feel that there's nothing wrong with their behaviors. So they do not learn. And so thank you so much for your question. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. And I hope that these videos do help and to protect you, and that you can really, this can make sense to you, so that you can really feel adept and safe, so that you will not be taken advantage of or fooled or duped, but then once you learn this, you'll be able to identify these people, and you'll be able to see, you'll be able to know, you will be able to not get enmeshed with, you will not tangle with, you will not talk to, you will not look at, you will not believe the lie. You'll be able to have this as a very, very valuable and important tool towards moving forward in your life gracefully, and being able to plan and dream and feel that you will not be snagged by an individual such as this who would take advantage of you, because you will know better. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out. Love you.